I have chosen to talk about the presidency, and I've done that because I think it's a topic that I enjoy talking about, and also because it goes well with the theme risk-taking. About 2 years after the American Constitution was approved, George Washington took office April the 30th, 1789, as the first president in the United States of America's history. Since then, 43 other men have held the position. At this point, Barack Obama, who took office 20 January 2009. I've chosen to talk about John Fitzgerald Kennedy. His period was short but strongly influenced by a world historically international crisis. John Kennedy was born the 29th of May 1917 in Brookline, Massachusetts, in a rich and influential family with strong political traditions. In 1946, he was elected to the House of Representatives in the Congress, and sat there until 1953. In 1952, he is chosen for the Senate, and in 1960 established as the Democrats' president candidate. At the end of the year, John F. Kennedy achieved the American presidency in a very close confrontation with Richard Nixon, who takes office the 20th of January 61. One of the first large tasks John was made responsible for was worked out by his predecessor, Dwight D. Eisenhower, of which was to invade um, Cuba with a major army of exiled Cubans led by CIA. The invasion was a complete failure, and resulted in the Cuban leader Fidel Castro got even more popular than before, and turned out to the communist Soviet Union to get protection, and that helped building up to the Cuban Missile Crisis 1.5 years later. Fidel Alejandro Castro Ruz was the Cuban president in the period between 1976 and 2008, and I think he's a great example of how risky and dangerous it is to be president in certain parts of the world. Fidel Castro himself has faced hundreds of assassination attempts and lived. Apart from that, he also been forced to take a lot of risky decisions throughout his career, most of them during the Cuban crisis. The Cuban Crisis is a designation for the 13 days in October 1962 where USA and the Soviet Union mutually made threats to use nuclear weapons if necessary. The crisis was the culmination to the Cold War and probably the closest the world has ever been to a nuclear war. The crisis emerged when the Soviet Union began the development of a series of rocket launching systems for conveying medium-range missiles. Fully functional, these rockets were able to reach Washington, D.C. and lots of other strategic goals in the States. The crisis lasted from October the 16th, where the Soviet installations were revealed, and 13 days until the 28th of October, when the Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev announced that the installations on Cuba would be disassembled. It was actually reports from Hammer Fyr and Fyrskib Gezarev about Soviet shippings in Danish waters that was part of the reason for the crisis being averted. American presidents in the recent decades have been protected by huge amounts of security forces and bodyguards. But John F. Kennedy was incautious the 22nd November 1963 when he drove in an open car through Dallas in the state Texas. An assassin hit the president in the head with a bullet, and he died instantly. A few hours later, a man named Lee Harvey Oswald was arrested and brought to interrogation. Before he even arrived, he was killed by a man named Jack Ruby, who afterwards is imprisoned. He refuses to help with the investigation. John's little brother Robert, who was a politician, senator and presidential candidate, were in June in '68 shot outside the hotel in LA, where he just performed a speech related to his victory in the primary election. Robert, also known as Bobby, died 26 hours later.